Good morning. It's a great day in Lubbock, Texas. My name is Councilman Steve Massengale, and I can't tell you how excited I am to welcome you to the site of Lubbock's future State Veterans Cemetery. Where we are gathered today, right now, will be a place for us to come pay our highest respects to the men and women who fought bravely for our country. It will be a place for our families to visit their loved ones and for visitors to make sure our heroes are never forgotten. This site right here will be the final resting place for men and women who sacrificed a great deal for the freedoms we enjoy today. Freedoms that we should never take for granted. A veterans cemetery will honor our veterans with lasting tributes that commemorate their service and sacrifice. To the men and women here today that served in our nation's military, we say thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very proud to represent Lubbock, Texas, and I don't believe there's a more patriotic city. There's no better place for the state to build their first state veteran cemetery in more than 12 years than Lubbock. The tributes and ceremonies that will be held here will ensure our children and our children's children remember the sacrifices of our nation's heroes long before they were born. We owe more than we could ever repay to our veterans. This cemetery is just one more thing we can do to honor our fallen service men and women. It took a lot of work from a lot of people to make this possible today. And so if you'll indulge me, I'd like to recognize some of those. Many of those are up here on the stage with me today. First of all, Dr. John Kelly and the entire team at the Texas General Land Office, thank you for everything, Dr. Kelly. I want to express my thanks to Commissioner Buckingham for all of her support in the project. We don't get here without several layers of help. I want to first start by thanking Senators Ted Cruz and John Cornyn, Congressman Jody Arrington, Senator Charles Perry, Chairman Dustin Burrows, Representative Carl Tepper, all of which contributed to the point that we got here today. Please help me thanking all of them. I would be remiss if I didn't thank the city manager, Jared Atkinson, and all the city staff. They've carried the wood and water on this deal, and we're so grateful. I'm grateful to my colleagues on the council, both current and the former councils worked on this project. Mayor Pope was in on this from ground level, and he deserves a great bit of gratitude to help make this happen. Judge Parrish in Lubbock County has also been very supportive and helpful in this effort. Thank you so much, Judge. A very special and sincere thank you to our four retired generals that worked so hard in our community for our veterans. The late General Bernie Mittermeier, my friend, the late General Edgar Murphy, General Walter Huffman, and General Gary Harbor, who is with us here today. General, thank you so much. Your continued dedication to our area veterans is incredibly admirable, and we've been able to accomplish so much to your unwavering advocacy and support. Two special people to me, Ann Murphy's here today representing the Murphy family, a longtime family friend, as well as Mary Beth Mittermeier wasn't here, but if you ever get the opportunity to thank them, they still stay engaged. We've been engaged with them as we've worked through the process. I just want to bless you, Ann, and all you've done, and bless your family. Thank you so much. I want to thank you to all our Lubbock Veterans Advisory Board members that are here today from the city group, and also all the local veterans organizations. We do great things with our community of veterans when we all work together on projects such as this. This Veterans Cemetery is possible because of a $9.5 million grant from the VA. This grant will fund the entire project, including drainage, landscaping, roads, administration, buildings, and so forth. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs understands how important it is for the veterans of Lubbock and the surrounding areas to have a dedicated and dignified resting place. This location had overwhelming approval and was chosen out of several options. To the south of us, yes, right there, will be the future City of Lubbock Lake 7, a project long in the making that will not just be a new water source for Lubbock, but will feature new outdoor and recreational activities not seen before here. This Veterans Cemetery will overlook Lake 7, and it is a cornerstone project to what will become a very beautiful and well-visited part of our great city. I want to close today by saying this is not just Lubbock's Veterans Cemetery. This will serve our region. To our veterans and their spouses in the South Plains, the Panhandle, Eastern New Mexico, and Permian Basin, this will all be for you. There are over 20,000 Texas veterans in the Lubbock community and beyond, and we want you to know you're all welcome here. Today is very exciting. We're excited to finally announce and celebrate this project. We're so glad each and every one of you are here today. At this time, I'd like to hand it over and introduce my great friend, Congressman Jody Arrington.
Thank you, Steve. How about this nice, cool West Texas summer day, huh? Now, I say that a little tongue-in-cheek. I think only Massengale could organize an event where he would test our resilience in this blistering sun. Lord have mercy. You know, we could have been facing that way. But, look, Steve's been the tip of the spear on this project. Let's give it up for Steve Massengale. And this is a great example of what we can achieve as the people of West Texas and this great God-fearing community of Lubbock when we work together. And so I want to thank the local officials. Steve represents them, but Judge Parrish and many others at the local level. And then, of course, my partners in public service in Austin, Texas, fighting to keep Texas maybe the last bastion of freedom, is my friend and Chairman Charles Perry and Carl Tepper, and I think Chairman Burrows isn't here, but they do a great job in Austin, being our voice, the voice for West Texas values, and fighting the fight down there. Give it up for them. Well, I've been 5 weeks in Washington, so you can't even imagine how great it is to be home. But you know, there's no homecoming for me like being with our heroes, those who were willing to give up their today for our tomorrow, just to put it all on the line, to face the fire for our freedom, for our way of life, and for freedom-loving people around the world. So if I don't say anything that makes any sense up here because I'm going to have a heat stroke, I want you to know, my beloved veterans in rural America, we haven't forgotten you, and we love you. And this is sacred ground, and soon to be. And it's there to give you and your colleagues the proper heroes burial. And you've earned it. You know, save and accept God's favor. America's greatness can be found in our freedom. And that freedom came and has come at a great price to many. Those who are here, those who never made it home, to the Gold Star families, As we say, freedom isn't free. And this will serve as a memorial to the service, to the sacrifice, and to the blood of patriots that gave birth to this great country and have nurtured and preserved it ever since. Amen? Well, I better just stop right there, Charles. I better stop right there. Man, when things get tough and I get a little down about the direction of our country, the one that you were willing to die for, God just gives me a moment to just look at you and be inspired. Woo! I'll say it again. Woo! I wonder how they're going to write that. We flew this flag over the United States Capitol in your honor and in honor of every one of our beloved veterans and heroes that will be buried on this sacred ground. So thank you for letting me represent you and fight for our republic and our future and our children's future and your grandchildren's future in the greatest country in human history. God bless our veterans. God bless America, and go West Texas.
A little shorter than Jody. And, I like the heat. I will tell you that the Capitol, I'm sure D.C., it's a lot hotter in a different way there most of the time. One that I don't want to ever experience up there. Austin looks a little more like D.C. than it should every day. It's an awesome day in Lubbock, Texas. And I could go through how we got here, and you would know that it was a God thing. Because by all rights, a lot of this was something that was going to happen, but probably not in my grandkids' days. But things just aligned and came together in a way that nobody can explain other than God said this is something we need to do in Lubbock, Texas. I'm always reminded there's always visionaries, and we spoke to the 4 gentlemen that were persevered through all of the conversations for, you really can't do this, or we're going to do this, but it's going to be this time. And I don't have any regrets today because I know Bernie and Edgar are looking down on this, and all they should be hearing from us is well done, my good and favorite servants. They are honestly people that were dog on a bone. That's a West Texas term. They got on this, and they weren't going to take no for an answer. But the truth of the matter is the way government moves as slow as it can, and it should sometimes and doesn't, we thought this would be one of those days, that it was going to happen, but obviously it didn't happen quite quick enough for those 2 gentlemen, but I know they're here. I feel their presence today, their spouses involved, but I would say the visionary and Bernie, Edgar, Gary, and Walt can't be understated, and the support group that surrounded them, Benny, Guerrero, the Danny Koch's of the world, the Councilman Massengales, and those folks that encouraged and went through that process. I'm also reminded that these things only get done if there are people that buy in to the implementation side. It's one thing to have the vision. It's another thing to actually have people committed to actually following through and trying to make that happen. And I want to recognize a couple of those, or a few of those today, that you'll never know again. You'll never hear their names probably other than today, but I can't go throughout this presentation and what I think historically it means without mentioning those people that were committed to it. First of all, the GLO. I will tell you that the former commissioner was not quite as favorable to the project, not because on its merit, but for different reasons. And then we had an election. And you know what? That's one of those things that just changed the paradigm a little bit. Senator Buckingham became our GLO commissioner, and she's always been. She serves with me and served with me in the Senate. She served with me over Abilene, which she was familiar with, the state cemetery down there. And if you've never been to a state cemetery, it's nothing short of an Arlington. This is special. When we get this done and the way they do things and the way they spend the money to do it right, it will be a phenomenal asset that will be sought from all over the country. It'll be a place to go to, want to be a part of. So it's a matter, but in my office, I will say that my committee director, Catherine Thigpen, I will tell you Mark Havens at the General Land Office, bought in early, great relationships with that individual over my 14-year tenure down in Austin. But they took it upon themselves to make sure that whatever needed to be done put us in a position to have this conversation today. John Kelly, we were talking earlier, it started on a Zoom meeting several months prior to today, and I would tell you the Zoom meeting was probably not as favorable as you'd like to be, but I could tell John and a couple of members on that Veteran Land Board were interested and thought that it was possible. And without for those people that had a little bit of that glimmer and caught the vision, we wouldn't be having it today. So those are the people that got the invitation. I think it was Mason Champion, I think, in Jody Arrington's office, and Chase Walker. Those are people that you make a phone call to them as a elected official. We get the credit sometimes, or we get when we're deserving, we get the other. But that's people that we hand these balls off to and say, you got to catch the dream. And without failure, those four individuals, Mark, Catherine, Mason, and Chase, they caught the vision and pushed this to the head. I will tell you what we were told was Lubbock was way down on the list. There was many Texas cities that were going to be, and I think Guam was ahead of the list to get it in here. So what we did, we said, well, we got to get on the list. So we filed an application. We got on the list. Come to find out, there was nobody ahead of us on the list. So, you can hear a lot of things, but until you actually go and do the work, you don't know what truth is. Truth is there was nobody ahead of us. Then the second challenge was we were on the second list for new facilities. The first list was maintenance of existing facilities. And somehow or another, through maneuvers at the federal level, those monies became available for Lubbock to build a cemetery, even though it didn't, quote, qualify according to the federal level. State committed 2.1 plus in this current biennium budget. It was announced back in February. We'd gotten the commitment from the feds. In Austin, you don't bank on anything till the vote's done. We voted for a budget about 2 weeks ago now, and it has 2.1 to basically provide for the maintenance and operation for 2 years. Going forward, the state funds $7 million a year for the existing 4, plus this one is 5. We've committed to $1 million per year on the M&O side to make this thing work and keep it where it needs to be every year going forward. So it's a commitment on the state's part. We're in it into perpetuity until good Lord takes us home. And I think that shows that the state, at the end of the day, is supportive of it. I'm reminded that there are a lot of Texans by birthright that answer the call to serve, that sign that bottom line that says we're willing to commit our bond servitude at all cost to the final cost. I'm also reminded that this is the hub of the South Plains, West Texas. It's central. That name's not by mistake. We are a hub for a lot of things. We will have Eastern and New Mexico veterans. We will have Oklahoma veterans. We will have probably Colorado veterans that take this opportunity to have their loved ones buried closer than where they are today. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal for Lubbock. It's a big deal for our veteran community. It's a great example, as Congressman said, when you're local, your state, and your federal, in today's political climate that seems to be nothing but dissension and separation, you come together to do what's right. It's right for Lubbock to have this today. It's right for the state, federal, and locals to support this, because the men and women and their family members that will be buried here are deserving of that, and it's what we should do. One other aspect that I don't think we talk about much, it will be an education opportunity. Our youth will come to this through various programs and schools and opportunities, and they will be reminded at those that gave it all to serve a country that they're the beneficiary of. And it's important now more than ever that we remind our youth of today that what our country stood for and what it stands for and what it has to continue to stand for does not come by happenstance. It's deliberate commitment and conviction by the veteran and those that chose to serve and defend our ideals and values around this world. That's why this is more important today than anybody in this generation that I'm looking at, and me included. It will be in perpetuity to espouse why we are who we are as a country and where we're at in this world, and our leadership obligation to be willing to defend what we are as a country, because we were based on God's eternal gift of inalienable rights to each and every one, and that does not stop at our country's borders. And we have to take that role seriously. And that's where I see the benefit and the real legacy of the cemetery will be educating our youth of today about what our past was and why it was needed and how come it's still needed, and hopefully instill the same servanthood that each and every one of you represent today. With that, I thank you for that. I'm going to bring up my counterpart at the county level, County Judge, Judge Parrish.
Well, good morning, everyone. What a great day in West Texas. On behalf of the Commissioners Court, including I got Jordan Rackler, Commissioner Precinct 4. I've got Terrence Kovar, Commissioner Precinct 1, also a veteran. We want to say welcome and thank you for the unfailing effort by our entire community in securing the funding for this veteran cemetery here in Lubbock. And it has taken the whole community working together to make this happen. One of the things I know that Councilman Massengale was talking about in the list of all the people to thank, of course, he didn't thank himself, and so I do want to thank Steve Massengale for his unfailing effort in getting this secured and funded. Thank you, Steve. One of the efforts, and I hope I'm not out of place, Councilman, is to, once this facility is built and funded, part of this is going to be a bell tower. And if any of you are familiar with veteran cemeteries around the state, you know that there is a bell tower, a carillon, and at the top there will be an electronic. It won't be live. It won't be a Quasimodo out pulling the strings. There will be a bell tower, and every morning at sunrise, the bell tower will play reveille. And every evening as the sun goes down, the bell will play taps in honor of our sacred dead. Other people to thank today are Benny Guerrero and the veterans organizations. Many of them are sitting here represented. Talk to them, and you'll find the pride and the honor they feel in having a place for themselves, for their families, and for their colleagues, those that they serve side by side, shoulder to shoulder with here in Lubbock. I also want to thank Eddie McBride for his unfailing effort in moving this forward. Thank you, Eddie. And as was mentioned, our retired generals, some of who already have been called home by the Supreme Commander. It was their unwavering vision of an honored place of rest right here in Lubbock for the men, the women, and the families of those who served and have bled for our nation and have brought this entire project to fruition. Today and every day we say, thank you. 160 years ago, President Abraham Lincoln stood at the side of a cemetery and gave perhaps one of the most famous speeches in history, the Gettysburg Address. His words that day in November of 1863 are highly appropriate for this day as well. He says, "In a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. It is the brave men, living and dead, that have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here today, but it can never forget what they have done. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who have fought and have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to this great task remaining before us, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people and by the people and for the people shall not perish from this earth. May God bless this project. May God bless you and your families, and may God bless Lubbock County." This time I want to introduce a very special friend to Lubbock. He has made Lubbock basically his adopted home for the last few months, and helping us secure this project could not have happened without him. I want to introduce Dr. John Kelly. He is with the Texas General Land Office, and he heads the division of the Texas Veterans Cemetery. He is also a retired lieutenant colonel and a proud veteran and a great patriot. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. John Kelly.
Well, good morning, everyone. And on behalf of Dr. Dawn Buckingham, the Commissioner of the General Land Office and Chairwoman of the Veterans Land Board, thank you for inviting me today. I came prepared with a speech that included words like vision and perseverance and hope. And so when I showed up here, Matt Dotre, that works for the city, said, no, here's what you're talking about today. So kind of dumped that speech, and instead I'd like to give you a few updates where we're going. But before I get to that, a lot of people have asked me, why are you so passionate about this? Well, first of all, I'm your director of the Texas State Veteran Cemetery Program. And to me, there are 21,546 reasons for doing this, and that is the veteran population here in the Lubbock area. And I would also tell you that I believe some in the Amarillo veteran community will also benefit from this project as well, because right now they've got to go a full 280-mile drive to get to our cemetery in Abilene. So it's going to be helpful to them as well. So a little bit about the project. I'm already getting calls for people that want to pre-register at the cemetery. Yeah, and so please realize that this is a very carefully crafted process in conjunction with our federal partners and the National Cemetery Administration. In fact, they advise us and approve our proposals throughout. So later this afternoon, I'll be doing a 35% design call with the National Cemetery Administration for this project. And then we'll have a 65% design call, a 95% design call, and then 100%. So the output product of where we are right now in the design phase is actually the design of the cemetery, architectural and engineering design. And so it will display what you see here, but it also will drill down into the level of detail of where every irrigation pipe goes and what valves on the end of it. It's a very detailed process. So the output of that product will then go to our procurement folks who will release it out on statewide bid. I'm hopeful that some of your local contractors would perhaps bid on that, but we will unfold that process, and in about August, we'll select a vendor. We'll do some further administrative processing, and we'll get that whole package back up to the National Cemetery Administration by the 30th of September. They will then approve us for award of the grant. And it's my belief, given that we will already have selected the vendor by then, they should be able to break ground, hopefully, in November. So I will invite you ahead of time to come back here in November for a groundbreaking ceremony. And then we'll start the actual construction. Now, as was mentioned previously, it's been quite a while since we built a new cemetery. And so I'm really reliant on some of the expertise at the National Cemetery Administration. They tell me it will take 18 to 24 months to build it. I will try to hold us to 18 months rather than letting it slip to 24. So if you think about a calendar for a moment, we break ground in November. 18 months later is about May of 2025. There's a short period of acceptance inspections, and then I foresee gates open and operational in June of 2025. Now, who's authorized to be buried here? If you hold a DD-214, record of military service, you served on active duty, and some other special conditions that might apply in your circumstance, you're eligible to be buried. Once arriving on the cemetery grounds, there's absolutely no charge for the veteran. And their spouse is also authorized burial here, and eligible children. We, the state of Texas, decided quite a few years ago we would not charge for spouse burials or burials of family members, and so that is at no expense to the family. And I sort of call that the Texas way, and I believe it's the right thing to do, and that we'll be sticking to that in the future. So if you look over here and you've been to the cemetery at Abilene, I want you to picture in your mind that cemetery at Abilene plop down right over there. That's what we're aiming to build here. We're all very excited about it, but it honestly, at the end of the day, it's a testament to you, our great veterans and their families. And so in closing, I'd like to say God bless you, veterans, and your families. God bless the United States of America, and God bless Texas.
I'm not quite as tall as the rest of the gentlemen up here. So good morning, guys. I'm going to wrap this up. I know you guys are all hot, and to my colleagues up here, I know they have got to be melting in full pea suits up here. I'm Dr. Jennifer Wilson. I'm a Lubbock City Councilwoman for District 5, and it is an honor to be here with all of you guys today. Thank you for all our friends and colleagues for being here. We couldn't have done this without everybody here, including you. On behalf of the City of Lubbock, I just want to reiterate how excited we are for this opportunity to show our veteran community how much we appreciate their service and their sacrifice. You know, Lubbock is an ideal location for the cemetery. Like many people have said before me, you know, we're very central out here in West Texas, and we are going to be proud to call this the final resting place and home for our veterans. This cemetery is just one way we can show our continued support, and we will continue to show support through the city, state, federal level, and through all the Veterans Advisory Boards and committees here in Lubbock. Like my colleagues have said before me, I just want to say thank you to all of our veterans. We couldn't be here today as a country, as a state, as a nation, as a people without your service and your sacrifice. I want to thank you again to all the elected officials for being here today, and the ones that have supported us on this project. Again, Senator Ted Cruz and John Cornyn, Congressman Jody Arrington for taking the time coming back from Washington to be here with us today. Our State Senator Charles Perry, who this project wouldn't have moved forward without. Both Chairman Dustin Burrows and Representative Carl Tepper, thank you for being here. You know, they just got out of a busy state session, and we're happy that they're home. And then also to my fellow council, Mayor Trey Payne, who couldn't be here today with us, and all of my council members who were here today, Council Member Sheila Patterson-Harris, Council Member Latrell Joy, especially Council Member Steve Massengale, myself, and our others that were not able to be here with you today. Also want to say thank you to our former mayor and our former council. You know, they were a big part of this project moving forward. I'm so grateful for our Lubbock Veterans Advisory Board and all the local veterans organizations, the Department of Veterans Affairs, our Texas General Land Office, Dr. John Kelly for taking over and being here with us today and working on this project. And without all of you, none of this could have been possible. So from the bottom of my heart, you know, God bless America. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your continued dedication to our active service members and to all the veterans that are here today. And now, with further ado, so we can get out of the sun, we invite you for some refreshments and then to celebrate this momentous day with us and hopefully our groundbreaking later this year in November. Thank you to y'all. Yeah, we absolutely should.
I think it's only appropriate that we've asked God's blessing so many times today. We've acknowledged his existence, but at the same time, we're called to pray, and I don't know a better time to pray. There's always a good time to pray. Never a bad time to pray, and then we'll do the pledge, and then you can hit the tea and the snacks. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the God that you are. We are standing in humble humility and awe that your presence is felt today. We recognize those that have gave the ultimate sacrifice that's only comparable to the fact that you gave us your Son to love us and give us an eternity with you. We thank you for that sacrifice. We thank you for that commitment. We thank you for Lubbock, Texas, where it's still okay to acknowledge you as sovereign God amongst the elected officials that this community sends us to do our bidding with. That is not to be taken for granted, and unfortunately, not the norm we live in anymore. We acknowledge you today as the sovereign God you are. We acknowledge the fact that we're only here because you are all that is good, and this is good today. There is nothing better to recognize those that really give it all for others. Your word tells us that the ultimate service is be willing to give it up for anybody and everybody they may know or may never know in the future. We thank you for your commitment to us, and we thank you for this beautiful day, heat and all. We thank you for the rains of the present and the past. We pray for more in the future, but we also pray for a revitalization, a revival of the Spirit, a spiritual rainfall that will only cleanse this country from the things that it's doing that are contrary to your will. We thank you for your love. We thank you that you love us in spite of ourselves. And all God's people said, amen. With that, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance for those who are able to stand. Representative Carl Tepper. Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order!